Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we have a really cool unboxing video today, as I have just scored a pretty darn nicely sized amount of Dinosaur King figures. If you are familiar with the Dinosaur King figures, you'll know that they are quite long discontinued. They've been out of production for quite a while now, so they are fairly hard to get a hold of at times. They're pretty easily accessible in a way on eBay usually, but they're expensive. So to get a figure, I usually end up seeing them around the $25 to $30 range, and that's like usually a pretty good deal on one. So when I saw this lot, I was instantly interested and I picked it up. I think it was like 60 bucks for all, which is a little bit more than I would normally like to spend on figures like this, but again, for what they are, I knew the rarity of the figures and was definitely interested in picking up more because I only have 3 in my collection currently, which would be the Iguanodon, the Shantungosaurus, I think it was, and then there was also a Megaraptor. So I'm really psyched to have a few other figures here as far as species that I don't already have. Now, the only problem is I'm not entirely sure exactly what species each are meant to represent, so there are a few that I may be a little confused on as to what species they were actually meant to be, because the Dinosaur King figures are a little bit crazy looking at times. But the very first one that I have here is quite clearly the Amargasaurus, and this is one that I've really wanted because anytime there's an Amargasaurus figure out there, I always want to get my hands on it, and considering the rarity of the Dinosaur King figures, I wasn't thinking that I was ever probably going to get a hold of this one. But luckily it was included there, and I did get a hold of it. You can see it's a little bit dusty. It doesn't seem like these were like nicely kept in shelves or anything. It looks like they probably just came from a box to me in a box, and that's okay with me. They just need to be cleaned up a little bit, but it's a pretty cool looking figure. Not the best again, but still pretty fun, and it's in decent shape, so I'm happy about that one. Then there was also this one, which is quite large. I think this one is meant to be the Titanosaurus. I think, again, if you guys are more familiar with the Dinosaur King figures and the Dinosaur King, toy line, you'll have to let me know in the comments exactly which some of these figures are that I'm unaware of, because I never actually watched the show or anything. I don't know too much about it. I'm just a big fan of dinosaur figures and stuff, so I was very interested in this line because there's a lot of really cool kind of obscure species included in it, and I'm not too sure on some of these. This is one of those that I'm not entirely sure, but I think it is supposed to be the Titanosaurus, which is actually a pretty darn big figure in comparison to some of the others. It's definitely the biggest Dinosaur King figure that I believe that I have in my collection, and you can see it looks pretty cool overall. It's a very interesting looking figure, and another one that I'm quite happy to have been able to get a hold of. And then we've got this one, which to me looks to be a Parasaurolophus, and quite nicely done, honestly. I'm actually quite a fan of the overall appearance of these figures. I feel like they're kind of something that at times you just have to become accustomed to as far as like the style of figure, sort of like Takara Tomy. With Takara Tomy's figures, you have those weird ball joints in the tail and stuff, and a lot of people hate that. A lot of people really don't like it, but once you kind of get used to that and you can move past it, it kind of becomes part of their charm. And I feel like these Dinosaur King figures kind of have like that very Dinosaur King toy-like look, so it's sort of like part of their charm as far as the kind of interesting way that they look. And it's a really nice figure as well. Definitely a species I'm happy to get a hold of because I love Parasaurolophus, so a nicely done figure. Pretty neat looking paint scheme on it as well. And then this is something that I don't know anything about. It's also a Parasaurolophus, or it seems. It's a little bit warped, it seems. Maybe I'll have to fix that, but it's got some crazy stuff on it, and I don't know why. I, again, don't know much about the show at all, so I'm sure there's a reason why this is on the figure, why this has occurred to the dinosaur, but it's not something that I'm familiar with as far as why it's got this stuff on it. So something that I'm looking to you guys that are familiar with the Dinosaur King show and everything to kind of inform me of in the comment section, because I would be quite interested to know. Maybe something I'm going to get a hold of a few episodes of and watch very soon, because I'm quite intrigued by it. The more figures that I get, the more intrigued I get by the show. And then we've got this one, which, will it stand? Yes, oh no, kind of. I have to get the feet in a better position. But which I'm thinking is probably a Spinosaurus. It looks like a Spinosaurus. It kind of looks like it. It's got a sail in there, but it's sort of obscured by these, whatever these things are on it. Again, that I'm going to await you guys to tell me what exactly that is. But you can definitely see another cool looking figure. He's got an exceptionally long neck, but The only real big downside to these figures is the fact that they were obviously played with, so they do have quite a bit of scuffs and everything on them, which I don't know if something I might try to touch up, but I may not. I like to keep my figures original, but at the same time I should probably try to restore them, so that's something that, I'll have to decide at a later date. But it's another cool looking figure. Again, very interesting appearance with these things on it, but quite nice looking overall. Then we got one that I'm really psyched about, which quite clearly is not in the right spot in front of the camera, but is an Acrocanthosaurus. Really cool looking Acrocanthosaurus as well. I wouldn't expect pink to work so well on an Acrocanthosaurus, but it looks really neat on this figure, and definitely something that I was really psyched to see included in this lot, because ever since I had noticed this figure on eBay a while back, I was really interested in it because there aren't too many really nice Acrocanthosaurus figures out there, and I thought that this one looked pretty cool overall. So when I had noticed that this one was included, I was really happy about that because, again, an Acrocanthosaurus is an awesome figure no matter who makes it. Then we have a super crazy looking, what I assume is potentially an Ankylosaurus of some kind maybe, but the only downside is it's missing the tail. So there is a little bit of a downside on this guy. Unfortunately, he is missing a piece, which is like something that's awful if you're a collector like me, because you now know that you have to continue to look for this figure in the future, try to find it again in better shape with the missing piece. But I'm still happy that it was included just because, it's something that I can throw up on the shelf and can display with the Dinosaur King figures, but the missing piece is really quite a downside, I will say, but still a pretty fun looking figure. Although, again, I don't know what is exactly going on with it. It definitely looks like it's got something crazy going on. Then we have one of the figures that I already have, actually, which would be the Mega Raptor, which does not want to stand at all right now for some reason. There we go. So we do already have the Mega Raptor. I had this one, was one of the first 3 figures that I purchased. I purchased 3 of them in a lot for like $30, so probably about a year or so ago, maybe even a little longer at this point, but it's definitely a cool looking figure. I was quite happy to get it the first time, and now that I have 2, I'm also quite happy about that. Then we've got a Pachycephalosaurus, or again, at least I assume so. Some of these figures are a little bit crazy looking, so like the obvious choice for what the species should be may not necessarily be what that species actually is, but it looks like a Pachycephalosaurus to me. I actually really like this one. Unfortunately, the dome up there definitely has had some damage, and that would make sense because if these were played with, I'm thinking the kid that played with them was probably using him to ram his head quite a bit, considering that's what the species is, but otherwise pretty nice looking. I really quite like the paint scheme that they have on this one. Some of these paint schemes are a little bit like extraordinarily crazy, but this one is actually quite nice and quite natural overall. Pretty cool looking figure there. And then we have a really nice looking Stegosaurus. I am definitely a fan of this Stegosaurus right here. Beautiful paint scheme as well with that purplish coloration, and the way it plays off of the gray is really nice looking, and I love the blue up there on the plates. That as well as a really nice touch. Definitely a figure that I was happy to see how beautiful it was in person, and nicely sculpted and still in decent shape, it looks like. I mean, there's definitely some chips you can see on like the tips of the plates, but for the most part, he's still in pretty good shape. And then we have what I'm thinking is probably a Parasaurolophus, and that's definitely what it looks like to me. Another really nice looking figure. Like this one here might actually be one of my favorites overall. It is just beautiful looking as far as the paint scheme they've gone with here, but also the sculpt. That is a really appealing looking figure. Definitely one of the nicest ones that I've seen come from this box so far. Again, it's got some paint scuffs, but nothing too terrible. And then one that is a beautiful looking ceratopsian. I think a Pentaceratops is kind of what it looks like to me. So maybe, but really nice looking as well. Again, sculpt wise, it is gorgeous looking. Paint wise as well, I love the paint scheme they've gone with. They've managed to make yellow look very natural on a ceratopsian, which is something that I'm sure is not an easy task, but it's actually more of like an orangish yellow. It's almost like right in the midst of a transition from a yellow to orange. Another really cool looking figure. This one doesn't have too many paint chips or anything, a little bit there on the horns, but it's not in bad shape. There were also a few random little figures in here. That guy ain't gonna stand, that were just included. I figure I might as well show you guys. Boy, this guy is such a pain. He's just going to try to piggyback that sauropod right there, and then there's some super hideous looking Stegosaurus figures as well, all of which are pretty beat up, all of which I know nothing about. Very interesting looking figures, but nothing that I am familiar with at all. So, strange but interesting, I guess. And the next one we have is some super crazy looking type of a raptor. I don't have even a slight idea who this one is supposed to be, but boy, does he ever have an 80s style mohawk going on. So he's got some pretty sweet hair, but I don't know exactly what species this one is meant to imply, but it's got a really flashy look to it. Again, really nice color scheme, which is something that can be said for a lot of these Dinosaur King figures, surprisingly. Some of them are kind of outlandish as far as the paint schemes go, but then some, and a lot, I would say the majority, have really cool looking paint schemes, and this is definitely one of the cool looking paint schemes as far as I'm concerned. Pretty nice looking figure for sure. I'll have to look into this guy and find out exactly who that one is, but it's definitely nicely done. And then we've got another one that, yet again, I'm not entirely sure who exactly this one is that they're meant to imply. At first, I thought when I had initially saw the figure in the box, I thought maybe an Iguanodon, but we are missing the trademark Iguanodon thumb and everything as far as that claw goes. So it's my best guess, I would say, at this point as to who exactly this one is meant to be, but another really nice looking figure. I love the tones of green on this one. It's one thing that I'm actually becoming even more of a fan of as we unravel these figures are the paint schemes of the Dinosaur King figures. At first, I was kind of on the fence as far as like the sort of brighter and somewhat obnoxious looking paint schemes on some of them, but the further into this we get, the more impressed I actually am by the paint applications, and that's another really nice one. Now here's one that's a little bit off as far as the coloration goes, but we've got what I assume is a Triceratops, but man, that thing is super weird looking as far as the way it's created. It almost has like a translucent look to it, and then it's got some crazy paint application to it. So this is one that I'm going to say is not the most natural looking appearance to a Triceratops for sure, but it's a very interesting looking figure. There may be a reason why he looks like this, and again, that's something that I'll probably be informed of in the comments section from you guys, because there are a lot of you that I know are quite knowledgeable about the Dinosaur King series. But definitely an interesting looking figure, and also in nice shape overall, like quite a bit of them have been. And then the only other one that I have now in this box that I already had is the Majungasaurus. We already have actually reviewed this one on the channel. I already have this figure prior to this, but it's nice to have another because it's a really nice looking figure overall. And then what I'm pretty sure is a Saltasaurus, because it really obviously looks like a Saltasaurus, which is cool because there's very few Saltasaurus figures out there in general, so having one here from the Dinosaur King series is quite nice, and just generally it's a really appealing looking figure as well. Love the paint scheme on this one. Also, I like the way that that brown plays off of the green. It's just really nice colors. Overall, very nice and natural for a sauropod as well. And the final figure that we have from this box is the figure that I'm the most excited about for the entire box, and that is the Majungasaurus. And if you know me, you know I love Majungasaurus. So having one here from the Dinosaur King series, and it's a really nice looking one, is awesome. Super, super awesome. I'm pretty sure there's a Dinosaur King Carnotaurus out there, which unfortunately was not in this box. So that's one that I'm going to have to continue to look for. But this is a really nice looking Majungasaurus. Probably my favorite figure in general in the box as far as both the sculpt and also really cool looking paint scheme on it. But just also the figure I was looking forward to the most as far as everything included in this box. When I had seen the image and noticed that this one was included, I was really psyched about it because there are so few Majungasaurus figures out there, and this is a really nice looking one for sure. So again, this is my entire lot of very cool Dinosaur King figures that I'm really psyched about because I've been wanting to get more for a while, but they're always so pricey that I just don't really have the money to just continuously purchase. So being able to pull off an entire lot for a nice price was awesome, and it really helps to jump my Dinosaur King toy collection up quite a bit. So, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.